This is a 1 week post-fast update after my 40-day water fast. All right, so a lot of interesting things occurred during the week after breaking my fast. I'll just start with a few numbers here. I noticed, during the last, good portion of the fast, I basically stayed at 6 pH. And so the very next day, my pH ratcheted up to 6.25. And actually the very next day after I broke the fast, I noticed my weight actually temporarily dropped down another half a pound, which, it's just I've kind of chalked it up to being kind of inconsequential. You have a certain amount of momentum, and it's not like I consumed a lot when I broke the fast. I just have this little small amount, of the little smoothie that I had that I basically sipped on through the rest of the night. I basically worked on the amount that I blended a few hours. I was just kind of like sipping it, So it's interesting, like the first 2 days after I broke the fast, my pH went up a little bit to 6.25. And then, like 2 days in, my weight that's when my weight started going up, and it went up. And I knew that it was gonna, you typically after doing a really long water fast, because all your muscles push all the water, it's like your muscles dehydrate. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm gonna do a little more research on that, so I'll do a follow-up on that. But your muscles kind of push all the water, push it all out. And so, so even though I essentially lost 50 pounds, I knew from previous experience that probably at least 10 pounds was going to return rather quickly in the form of water weight as my muscles fully came back online and then started, they reabsorbed the water weight back into them. So, which is basically what happened. So I got down, around 164.5. So let's say around 165, and I started with 215. So that's basically 50 pounds. And I knew that I was going to very quickly get back to at least 175, very quickly. So day 42, so 2 days after I broke my fast, then I started ratcheting back up to 167.9. And then something interesting happened. It was on the third day after I broke my fast, my pH went way up. It had been staying in the low sixes for most of the fast, and of course I'm following this plant paradox, program, and then but I was sticking with basically just the smoothies kind of thing that I was doing, where I was just blending up resistant starch root vegetables, and mixing it with I actually did get the little carton of the resistant starch prebiotic powder that Dr. Gundry sells. So I poured some of that in there, a scoop of that in there in the shake, in the blender, and then he has this Reds formula where it's I extracted all the nutrients from different fruits, but then left out all the fructose, so that all went in there, and then I put in all the goat yogurt and probiotic infused coconut yogurt and flaxseed meal and all that stuff. So I was consuming that for the first few days, and then just consuming till the point that I felt satisfied, and then just kept working on that. But on the third day after I completed the fast, I noticed my pH then jumped up to 7.25, which you know, if you don't know, that 7.25 is the pH of human blood, and that it has to be that exact pH where it's just ever so slightly alkaline, and that if it were ever to go outside that range, your blood wouldn't be able to transport the oxygen, and then within minutes you would die. That's what I read. So it's very precise. You know, the blood, if it went down to 7 or went to 7.5 or whatnot, you very quickly, your whole system would have trouble, and you'd probably end up dying very quick. So the body is very, like, will sacrifice other parts of your system in order to keep the blood at 7.25, you know. And that's why a lot of people, they could have like very acidic, a lot of, you know, very acidic body overall, but your body is trying to keep the pH balance of your organs, your primary organs, and your blood, you know, at 7.25, and it'll allow other parts of your body to become way more acidic, you know, to try to keep that balance. But ideally, you don't want your whole body to be acidic at all, you know. So that was actually really cool to see that, because I don't even remember the last time I actually had a 7.25 pH in my general body, you know. And then on that day, you know, then my weight continued inching up, you know, which, like I said, was to be expected. So like 3 days in, I was about 170.4, you know, so so at that point I already, came back up, like, a little over 5 pounds, came back up. At this point, I was basically starting to stay up later. I noticed I started having a desire to not go to sleep as early. You know, whereas before I was like still trying to get to bed by like, 12:30, 1 a.m., maybe 2 a.m. at the latest. I started noticing that my energy level started increasing more. And I was like more fascinated with experimenting with different cooking and stuff, and like, and practicing the cutting of all the different root vegetables and things like that. I started staying up until like at least 3 a.m., within the first few days of after the fast. And then, I continued on. I would say the first, in terms of like, when was it? It was, it was like the next day was like the first time that I had any kind of, bowel movement. It definitely was more like not solid at all, I mean, is normal. Again, it was to be expected that, it's like when your stomach is coming back online, it's kind of like it's puttering and sputtering, and it's just like, you're just kind of like, you have like more gas, you have more everything. It's just kind of like as everything is kind of coming back online. So that's something to be expected. Don't expect to have like everything back to exactly normal on the first day. It takes it was definitely took a few days. The first few days was just like, it's kind of coming, it's kind of, somewhat. And the other thing I noticed was that, especially during this first week of coming back, the first several days, I noticed that it was somewhat painful to go number 2, it was, it was almost like, I was like, is something wrong kind of painful, like it almost was like, am I not chewing my food thoroughly, or am I not blending it enough or something? Because it almost felt like there's something sharp, coming out. And I was like, wow, what is going on here? And it was just like, it became, I didn't look forward to go to the bathroom for the first few days, So that was something that was a little disconcerting. But fortunately, it seemed to only last for the first few days, and then the painfulness started to subside. So I think it might have also been just like, maybe it's like things are all new and fresh and everything, and guess it's like extra sensitive or something, I guess. And then it needed to just be kind of like run through a few times to like, to get rid of the sensitivity. I don't know. But it gradually, the pain started to go down until, you basically by the end of the first week, it was pretty much, the pain had mostly subsided, and let's see what else. But yeah, I definitely, it wasn't until like day 3 or 4 in after the fast where actually it was anything even beginning to be solid coming out, So, so again, something to be expected. Let's see, then so I was getting a little adventurous in terms of eating, and gradually started to ramp up. I started to feel more, my stomach was feeling a lot better, and I was feeling like I could handle more stuff than just the, root vegetable smoothies and stuff with goat yogurt. So I started to expand a little bit, and I was with a friend of mine, and so we ended up going out to a place. So I don't know. I mean, I probably maybe was pushing it a bit too soon. I don't know. But I'm just letting you know what I did, because it's kind of challenging at times. But after looking at all the different options of what I could eat, I went to this Korean place, and I ordered the, bibimbap, which is like, it's basically rice. It's like a white rice with a mixture of different little vegetables and like a little bit of beef. I can't say for certain if it was like all pasture raised, so, and I'm like, I know that it probably had some violations in there. So it's not, I don't recommend doing what I did. But I mean, again, according to, what Dr. Gundry says is like, you do the best you can with what you got. So sometimes, and so after looking at all the options on the menu, that seemed to be like the healthiest option, and that would be it would violate the least of my eating program. So that's what I ended up doing. And I had a little bit of soju as well, which is, the Korean, alcoholic drink. But according to the program, he says that, you can have red wine and champagne and certain, hard alcohols, you're basically just not having like beer and try to avoid mixed drinks that have a lot of sugar in it and stuff like that. Let's see, what else did I do? I definitely experimented a lot more with these Shrub drinks, which I had not done before. I got introduced to the concept of Shrub, which are these like non-alcoholic cocktails, which you could actually turn alcoholic by just adding some alcohol to it. So, but they taste good, either the non-alcoholic version and then the alcoholic version. They both taste good. Just depends on what price you want to pay the next day, I guess. And so I actually spent a lot of time experimenting and couple of days in after the fast, I started, I went and collected more ingredients, from not Whole Foods, the other place. That'll come to me in a moment. But let's see. So I got these. So I perfected this recipe. That's like, I called it a sweet and spicy apple cider vinegar shrub, and then I made one with sake too. And then I started experimenting with. I found a guacamole recipe, which then I modified according to the plant paradox, which that was actually turned out really cool, and it was actually a good thing for me to experiment with. And I'd never made guacamole from scratch before, so it was actually kind of cool to actually do that. And it allowed me to basically practice all the different knife skills and peeling skills and blanching tomatoes and de-seeding tomatoes and and all that stuff that I'd never done before. And so it gave me a chance to practice those skills. And so I've since, just in the first week after finishing the fast, I made guacamole like half a dozen times. I just kept, like, every day. I was just making it every day, or a couple of times a day. Like, I'd make it earlier in the day, and then I'd do it later in the day, because I was just like, I'm like, okay, I gotta master this one, and just like master a few different dishes and things to create, that will follow the program, and then I can get better at it. So I kind of did that. And then again with the sweetener, with the sweet and spicy apple cider vinegar shrub drink, which I can just have the ingredients in the recipe. I'll just include that in the notes for the episode. I was experimenting with Monkfruit sweetener. I think it tastes great, and it seems to work really well with my system. And apparently it's on the yes list of the plant paradox. Yes list and no list. So you want to avoid cane sugar and corn syrup and all that stuff, but the monk fruit sweetener is a suitable sugar substitute, and it basically looks like white table sugar, and I personally feel like the sweetness level is comparable, the same 1-to-1 ratio. So whatever amount of regular table sugar you would use in a recipe, you just use about the same amount of monk fruit sweetener, and it measures similarly. That's what it occurs to me as, from the amount that I got. Let's see what else. Okay, something other. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, definitely the guac has, that definitely has been really good, doing the guac. Something else really odd occurred during, I believe it was around, let's see here, 4 a.m. Yeah, it was somewhere around like about day 5 or so after the fast. What did I say here? Yeah, I think it was like around day 5. So yeah, so I did the 40-day fast, and about 5 days in, as everything was kind of getting settled in, and I started noticing that I kept wanting to go to sleep later and later and later at night, until, at one point I was like, my body didn't seem to want to go to sleep until like after 3 a.m. or even on this first night that this thing occurred, where I didn't actually get to sleep until like 4 in the morning. So normally I'd get to bed at 4 in the morning, means I'm not waking up until like 10:30, 11 a.m. at the earliest, you know. But when I went to sleep on that particular night, again, like I said, it was like on the fifth day after I completed the fast, after I broke the fast. As I was getting ready to go to sleep, I had previously read some articles saying how after studying all of the different sleep positions, that the most optimal position is to sleep on your side, because when you're in deep, REM sleep, your brain actually starts to secrete this like spinal fluid, that actually washes over and through your brain and like washes out all of the waste and debris and shit and stuff in your brain. And that it really works the best when you're on your side. The way with the fluids flush through, it doesn't work very well when you're sleeping on your back. But on your side, the washing effect is way more pronounced and more thorough. So that's what I read about, and I remember that kind of stuck in my head. And I think I had read that, like a week earlier or something like that. But then there was something about, I just kind of intuitively kind of thought about that article I read and realized that I had mostly been sleeping on my back. I mean, part of the reason was because I had this, my broken collarbone. It kind of forced me to have to sleep on my back because it was just too uncomfortable and putting too much pressure on my collarbone while it was still in the process of healing. So I had to sleep on my back. But now I was like, okay, I was feeling like, okay, this thing feels pretty good now. And so I intuitively, I just kind of made notes to myself, like I specifically fell asleep. I was almost like picturing falling asleep like in a fetal position, like the fetal baby position, and I could describe it as like, and I have these two pillows, I've got these big red pillows that I have on my bed, like these things, these big, nice big pillows. I got a couple of these, and then I have my, and I got my, I have this like contoured pillow, which is really cool. Let's see, this is what it looks like. So it's got this like contour thing here, and then all these other like contour shapes and stuff for your face, and it's basically designed to be like, you can sleep like this on your side, and it like perfectly supports your neck and allows you to perfectly like support your cheekbone and your head and your cranium and all that stuff. Anyways, so that first red pillows, I have two of those. I like stuck one, and again, this was just kind of intuitively. I laid on my side and I kind of like brought my legs up closer to my chest, in a fetal position like this kind of thing. And I stuck one of those pillows between my legs. And then I positioned the contour pillow, on my side of my head. So I slept sideways like this. And then I took the other red pillow and I just like pulled it up to my chest and just kind of like hugged it. And I basically was just like this, with my knees pulled way up. And it actually, had this very comforting kind of feeling. And then I just dozed off. And like I said, it was like 4 a.m. And then something really weird happened. Like I said, I jotted down exactly what time I went to sleep. Yeah, so I went to sleep at like 4 a.m. And then I woke up at exactly 7 a.m. Like exactly 3 hours later. And the weird part is like I'd set an alarm clock for like 8:45 or 9 a.m. or something, because I figured I'm like, okay, I'm going to need at least get so many hours of sleep. But strangely enough, I woke up at exactly 7 a.m. and then immediately like had the urge of like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. So I just got up at 7 a.m. without an alarm clock. I just woke up automatically, like exactly 3 hours later. And then, and within a few minutes I was up, and then I was, go to the bathroom. And then after I finished going to the bathroom, I just kind of noticed, I was like, hey, I feel awake, like I actually feel kind of pretty rested, and I was like, it's kind of odd, I was like, it's only 3 hours. I shouldn't feel this rested after only 3 hours, so it was kind of puzzling. I was like, that's kind of odd. And then fast forward the next evening, I passed out on the couch. I was kind of like hanging on the couch watching some TV and stuff, and then I was kind of like zoning in and out. But then finally, I ate a bunch of guacamole, and then I had some aged cheddar, sharp cheddar cheese and stuff. But for the cheese, I make sure to just get either goat cheese, or make sure it's an imported cheese from like Holland or Switzerland or something like that, that I'm pretty sure are not using the American type of cows, and they're using the old world type of cows that have the casein A2, protein in it. And that seems to be working for me, because it doesn't seem to, let's see. But at the same time, I'm kind of being, I'm watching it each day. I'm watching it, noticing. It's like, oh, okay, did I gain some weight? Maybe that was not a good batch of cheese, that kind of thing. But then, during that time each day, like I said, I was slowly creeping back up in weight. And I kind of, during the first week, I kind of stabilized, around 178, which is a little bit higher than I wanted to go. But, I'm just like, okay, it's, like I knew I was going to go up at least 10 pounds, shortly thereafter. But it's still, like, almost 40 pounds, close to 40 pounds lighter than where I was at prior to doing this fast, Okay, so continuing with the other thing, I noticed then, the next day, it happened again. This time I went to bed at 3:15 a.m. And then without an alarm clock, I woke up at exactly 7:15 a.m., exactly 3 hours later, without an alarm clock. And I felt rested. And I was like, that's strange, and then, then I guess I could go into one more day. And then like, and then it was just after, the 1 week, and then on the evening of 1 week later, again, I went to bed at 3 a.m. And once again, I woke up, it was after 3 a.m., so it was somewhere around 3:15, 3 something like that. And again, I wake up at like 6:30 in the morning automatically without an alarm clock. So, and so it was kind of interesting. So this is like, what's interesting though is like, this is not explained. They don't, this is not talked about at all in the plant paradox or in the fasting, in most of the fasting material that I've come across. I haven't seen, and I haven't really seen any examples or things talked about where after doing a long fast and then changing up your diet, that suddenly your sleep requirements get cut in half. Like, I did experience having a need for much less sleep during the first time I did a really long fast back in 2012. Like during the last week and a half or so, I noticed that I was only needing about 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. But strangely enough, I didn't experience that during this fast. during the fast. It was only after I completed the fast that suddenly my sleep requirements went way down. So it's kind of funny. I was like, I thought that having the less sleep requirements was a phenomenon that would only occur during the fast, and so then it would be limited. But it ended up not being that way. It ended up being the opposite, so that was kind of odd, so I have more to share about that, but, I just wanted to give the first week update. Yeah, and actually, one more thing I guess I'll share that I noticed that occurred was that, in addition to the, painful bowel movements, that I was also getting a fair amount of like indigestion feelings. Like occasionally get these like kind of almost like pain in my chest, kind of like indigestion, and it's just like, and then it would pass and it would disappear. So that's something else that was kind of periodically kind of coming and going during my first week of, again, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what that was, if it was just, things in my system are coming back online and it's just getting used to reprocessing stuff and it just hasn't settled in yet or something. That, and then, what else? 7. Yeah, so, and again, my pH seemed to kind of settle close to the 7, around the 7 pH level. It kind of fluctuated a little bit above it, a little bit below it, but then overall during the first week, it pretty much settled in to around the 7 pH, which is really good. That's a totally balanced pH. So what else? So that's my first week post-fast update of my experiences. And then I will follow up with another video with, some of the other things that occurred. My next few days after that, so just kind of give you an update and ideas of what could happen during your post-fast phase after you've done a long water fast. So, all right, hopefully this has been enlightening and helpful and all that stuff. This has certainly been a very fascinating, interesting experience for me, and some really odd, interesting things that happened that I would have never anticipated at all. And actually, in terms of the 3-hour sleeping thing, the only place I could find any kind of reference in which somebody else experienced something similar was the guru. He's this Indian guru called Sadej Guru, and he's written some books, and one of his books is called Inner Engineering, which I got the audiobook of it on Audible, and started listening to that. But I watched a few of his YouTube videos, and there was one he sounded really interesting, and so I started looking up his videos, and I found some of his videos that he talked about fasting and intermittent fasting and things like that. And in one of his videos, he actually describes his own daily eating routine and how he was using regular fasting. And then actually for a period of time, he was actually doing a lot of just one meal a day, or they call OMAD, 1 meal a day. And that he said that after he had done a certain amount of fasting and then switched to this other diet, and then he achieved enlightenment and all that kind of stuff, that he said something like for over 20 years or something, for at least a solid 20 years, he's only needed about 3.5 hours of sleep a night. And I was like, what? So I'm just like, okay, there's an example of someone who, utilizing a combination of regular water fasting, and intermittent fasting, and then eating a cleaner diet, and taking longer durations between meals. He personally recommends that there should be at least an 8-hour gap between meals. So I thought that was kind of interesting. A lot of people are like, well, you just eat everything in a 8 to 10 hour window, but he's just saying wait 8 hours between each meal. So that's different philosophy. But so far he's the only other person that I've found that describes anything similar to what I've been experiencing. So I thought that was fascinating. So I'm going to continue looking more into Sod H Guru for that. So, all right, well, so again, hopefully this has been helpful and enlightening and all that stuff. I don't know, maybe all of these experiences is helping me to become a more enlightened individual, and certainly, if it continues on that I only need less than 4 hours of sleep a night, that's pretty freaking cool. It's like it's close to a superpower, it's like a entrepreneurial superpower, as if you only need 3.5 hours of sleep a night to be fully rested. I mean, that's actually pretty incredible. So I don't know if this is going to last or not, or if this is just some temporary phase, or if it's like a direct correlation to how clean I maintain the diet, and that if I start really going off track too often, then I'm going to lose it, so I have a little bit of concern about that. If I, it's like, oh, I'm getting used to this, and then I suddenly totally lose it, that would kind of suck. But I will keep you posted, see if I can maintain it, and then also if eating certain things or going to bed past a certain time or whatnot directly impacts my ability to only need, less than 4 hours of sleep. Yep. All right. Until the next video, and I will definitely want to make another video where I actually show all the individual items that I used during my fast. So I think I'll do that on the next one. All right. Take care, and feel free to leave any comments, and and just love to carry on the conversation. All right.